Coming up on Nebraska Stories, a groundbreaking music program designed to change lives. Using wood, paint, and creativity to grow a village. Honoring a baseball legend in bronze. And a talented Nebraska athlete competes in the Special Olympics.
First finger down, go. Second finger down, go. Third finger down, go.
The students are young,
Nice. And rest position.
sometimes distracted, and notes are a little off-key at times. But just 2 years into an ambitious 5-year program to teach pre-K kids how to play the violin and cello, the results are promising.
And we take a bow now. There we go. Good job. You can see it with your own eyes that the kids are really changed from when they start bouncing off the walls to the end when they're standing on lines playing very complicated songs.
The 32-week curriculum includes originally composed music,
That is close. That's his neighbor, Billy Button Bee.
unique lingo, and games designed to make the learning fun.
No sharks without fins. Let's make some unicorns. Everybody's favorite. Somebody's shoulder's getting gobbled. Fortissimo!
The idea is to close the ability gap before kids enter school.
Kids who enter kindergarten already behind by a year or so, they just stay that way, and it's, a downhill course. So if you can get them in those years between 3 and 5, when their minds are really, open for learning, if we can get a whole bunch of kids in underserved areas doing this and be able to track the results, they're going to be big.
There's no other program like it in the U.S.
It's the only one of its kind that provides all of the instruments, requires a caregiver, and is in underserved areas.
And it is the largest such program, with some 1,300 kids enrolled in Omaha and Scottsbluff, with plans to expand to Kansas City.
We got a postcard in the mail that said they were going to have free violin lessons with free, the instrument was provided. And I kind of thought, that's amazing and seems too good to be true. So we registered and went and kind of kept waiting for the catch. And no, it was really, there's no cost for the families.
I think it's kind of great.
I'm amazed at how much she's picked up. And it's kind of incredible how much they can learn at such a young age.
It's part social science, part art, a cultural experiment that may have Nebraska leading the way in early childhood education.
Show me kangaroo.
Kangaroo in the pouch.
Oh, that's right.
Scientists at the University of Nebraska Medical Center are tracking the progress of participants, which could provide groundbreaking information regarding the effects of music education on the brain.
Now, let's look for jewelry.
Jewelry.
But
We have
parents
some more
here
pictures to
don't
look
need a
at.
study to tell them that their kids are learning more than how to play music.
I think with playing the violin, it really opens his mind up to creativity.
He was hooked from the first class. Just the way they teach it, the different games and everything kind of reinforces it. And he's really excited to come every single time. He's like, is it violin? Is it violin?
I'm really good because I've been doing it for 2 years. I like jellos and I like drums, and I really wanted to do a violin, so I got into this.
We tried to have him perform something before this, and he was like, no, I'm not doing this. And now he's like whipping out things, and I can do this. Let's get the violin, hook it up. So
He even accused us of bringing the wrong violin when he didn't hit the note he wanted.
he said,
This is not my violin. This is mine.
At recitals, the students are graded as they perform for family and friends.
We evaluate different things about their right hand, like their bow hold, what does it look like? How about their bow path? You know, there's specific things for each hand.
String Sprouts is not about finding the next great prodigy. Instead, it's about impacting the community in the long run, something Mainz calls the end game.
One little guy last year, had he gone into kindergarten without violin sprouts, would have probably been labeled, the naughty kid, and then there it goes, the whole rest of his, academic career is, the naughty kid. And really, he was, by the end, the leader in the class, standing on the line, and that's going to change his life.
The Omaha Conservatory of Music is able to spearhead this effort thanks to donations and grants.
His confidence has grown tremendously. He can get on stage, is not shy about anything anymore.
Well, at the first time, I was so nervous about up there, and then on the stage when I was playing my violin, it wasn't so nervous after all.
Matthew is a hoot. That kid is. He is so into violin. The nice thing about that is if they get a little group of friends, when they start young like that, the moment that they will not let it go is when it becomes a part of their identity. And so if you can get it to be part of their identity, I'm a violinist, before they get very old, it doesn't go away. I think Matthew's already got that. So wow, he's 5 and he already thinks he's a violinist. He's probably not going to give it up.
Many of the students like Matthew love playing music, and there's good reason to believe their brains may like it as well.
There's Ralph Hodson, little Audrey, Ralph and Hank, the friendly villagers of Taylor. Old-fashioned, kind of stoic folks, a little stiff, wooden, actually.
I want as many wooden people as there are actual people in Taylor, which is only 182. I can do it.
Mara Sandoz is one of the actual people and creator of the wooden ones. Her name begs the question, and yes, her husband is related to Nebraska-born writer Mari Sandoz. A couple decades ago, she got involved with a local economic development group brainstorming about ways to help the fading village, which sits on the edge of the sandhills near Calamus Reservoir.
What can we do to stop the traffic? What can we create for people to see? Photo opportunities. And so we went back to, okay, what do we have? We have a couple really cool historic buildings. Let's go back and capitalize on that. Let's go back to that era and let's recreate what was. When this town was booming, when this town was bustling, what did it look like?
It became Sandoz's project. A self-described, self-trained artist with experience using wood and paint, she hatched the idea of life-size plywood cutouts depicting people who might have lived in the village between 1890 and 1920. Those were the boom years when Taylor had twice as many people as today. The first villagers arrived in 2003. Herbert and Alice near the historic, now unused, Pavilion Hotel.
People thought they were fun. They were different. People said they had to stop and wait because they thought that the people wanted to cross the street. They'd wave at them. It created a lot of local chatter.
The villager population has since grown to about 100 of the cutouts. Sandoz does most of the work with a little help from family and locals. The Village Development Group and sponsoring organizations pay for the supplies. She donates her time. A few depict real people, but location is often a starting point for the artist.
So a lot of my ideas come from seeing a spot. I tend to see canvases in the community. What would have been happening there in 1910?
Like the yard of Mary Ellen and John Shunnison, home to love-struck villagers Charles and Louise.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I didn't know what it was going to be, and it just kind of feels like me and my husband.
Do people stop?
Oh, yes. They stop, come up, take their pictures, write things down, and I think they make the circuit and try and see every one of them.
So what's the story behind the wooden...
The wooden people?
Yeah.
They're a little bit of a tourism gimmick.
Okay.
The villagers caused a pair of westbound travelers to stop by convenient accident in a town square shop called Mara's Treasures.
First reaction, we thought it was real. Just kind of somebody standing there,
It's kind of an inviting look to it, it makes you want to find out more about it. So we're thrilled that we stopped here and find out this is where they're being made and a little bit about the villagers, as they call them.
Sandoz's shop is something of a byproduct of the project. In addition to displaying work from other local artists, she makes and sells custom order villagers, about 20 a year. These she paints in color. Sandoz believes the Villagers Project is helping the town as a whole.
Ladies groups are coming up for day trips. Car clubs are coming up just to drive around Taylor. It gives them a destination point. And they eat at the restaurant and they buy gas at the gas station, and you've begun to bring revenue into your town.
But right now, there's only so much revenue the villagers can generate for Taylor because there aren't a lot of places to spend money. Just a handful of businesses in the only town in one of the state's least populated counties, and that population has been declining for decades. Sandoz believes the Villagers Project can change that.
We're creating a really positive climate for antique and retro stuff. And so we'll see if we can get some other little businesses around the square that can fill those tourism niches.
For now, Sandoz will do her part by creating more villagers, 6 a year, until there's enough wooden people to symbolically double the town's population. All with the hope that real people will start coming to Taylor instead of leaving.
Nobody ever thinks about a statue. First of all, you don't think about going into the Hall of Fame. What I thought about, I want to be the best I could possibly be at whatever it was I tried to do. And I never thought about, well, maybe one day there'll be a statue. You just don't think about those things.
I got a call from Lee Polikoff, and he said he'd like to come down and visit my studio and visit me. We had a nice conversation just talking about their desire, wanting to honor Bob. Felt as though there was a very big need for that. Also a sense that he was part of Nebraska history and still is, but in a real vibrant way. And that there was nothing of that magnitude out there.
I met Bill White, who was a first baseman for the Cardinals and later became the first black president of the National League. He was in Omaha for a get-together, and I was talking to him, and then a couple weeks later he called and said, why hasn't Omaha ever done anything for Bob? And it was an interesting question. Bob is a very private guy, a very principled man, and so he's not out in the community talking about his accomplishments and achievements.
Still revered in Major League Baseball lore today, Omaha's Bob Gibson was nothing short of spectacular throughout his 17-year career with the St. Louis Cardinals. A graduate of Creighton University, where he played both basketball and baseball, Gibson would go on to win 2 World Series, 2 Cy Young Awards, and a National League MVP award. Cardinals number 45 was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1981 after retiring and returning home to Omaha in 1975. Nearly 40 years later, Omaha prepared to honor Gibson in a larger-than-life way. To accomplish this, the Sarpy County Sports Commission rallied around this Bob Gibson Heritage Project and chose Omaha artist Littleton Alston to create the sculpture. Alston, an associate professor at Creighton, Gibson's alma mater, is no stranger to creating monumental pieces around Omaha.
When Littleton and I first met, he said, this needs to be a major league piece. This is nothing wrong with minor league, but this is going to be what you would expect to see at Yankee Stadium or in Kansas City or any of the major league teams. And that's our goal, is to make it something that people want to come out and see.
I did a series of sketches and drawings, talked to Bob and to the committee about it. And then when we settled pretty much on general ideas, I began to do maquettes and did some sketching and did some small clay versions, and then did a final clay version, which was unveiled at Warner Park. I'll have models come in first and do drawings and photographs. And I was fortunate to have Chris Gibson, Bob's son, pose a couple of times in uniform. My process is from the inside out. So even on the head, I would sculpt the skull, and then from the skull, work my way out. Well, even on the clay, I would begin to shape the forms and then flay it, put all the muscles in. Some work from the outside in, where they scale it and work it in. And some even use computers to scale things in, like how you manufacture cars. I don't believe in that at all. I believe in the human hand. I believe in the emotion and the intelligence of the human hand. It's a long journey, and it's one that an artist, it's a hard one.
The artistic journey that Littleton began reached a boiling point during the summer months as the heat swelled in his downtown Omaha studio.
There's a critical decision that was made by me, but it was just by chance or providence. I think it's providence. I had the choice, and it seemed like a casual choice, to get a high temperature clay or a regular temperature clay. And just for some reason, I said, I think I'll take the high temperature. Now the high temperature is a little harder to work. Well, the summer was a bit much and created issues with sagging, but not close to the issues I would have faced if I had gone with the regular temperature clay. If it were not that hot, I probably could have gone much longer. But 6 or 7 hours and you're wet. But when you leave, you feel a sense of accomplishment, even though it's going slower. The heat slows your response. But that world that you enter, that you want to go in, that's part of the creative process, where time really sort of slows down, is what you seek and live for. So it was worth every second, yeah.
Here's the detail that you can see. When I saw it, shortly before it went out to be cast, I was looking at those little details of the socks, the stitching around the numbers, the glove, and those kinds of things. And he's spot on all that.
The rule was Bob has to approve whatever we do. And if he's happy, I'll be happy.
Throughout a series of molds, wax, and more molds, the sculpture begins to take its final steps at a Colorado foundry.
Once that happens and you get that metal poured into the molds, what you're doing is you're just replacing what was wax with bronze. And at that point, then everything is put together like a puzzle. That allows you to put structure in. So inside the Gibson is a network of things which helps support it and lift that bronze up into the air.
As countless hours of crafting the sculpture came to a close, friends and fans alike of Bob Gibson came out to see the unveiling of this spectacular piece of art on a cold April morning.
Well, the day is here. It's been a very long time since we first had conversations about what the work would be. And now today in the cold, but in this room, it is warm. We honor Bob Gibson in bronze. I'm a firm believer that when you put something in bronze, when you make it, it should be relevant and important. And so at that moment, the reveal, the dedication is for Bob Gibson. You know, it's not about me. It's about Bob's memory and Bob's efforts and Bob's life.
Efforts and a life that inspired this 8-foot bronze marvel. But as with Gibson, he hopes in the long run it means more and inspires someone else to greatness.
I hope it does. You always hope that what you do, especially if it's something that's positive, inspire somebody else, whether it's a kid or an adult. You know, maybe I did something else in my life that an adult would say, you know, it's pretty neat. And, but yeah, you hope that happens.
In July of 2009, 53-year-old Bobby Watson of South Sioux City, Nebraska, received news that he'd never forget.
What is that?
Bet.
A letter for you?
Yep.
And what does it say? That you're going to a track meet?
Yeah.
How great is that?
I know.
Bobby and other select athletes around the country found out that they would be competing in the Special Olympics USA National Games. Adding to the excitement was the fact that the games would take place in Lincoln, Nebraska. The Special Olympics has only held a National Summer Games one other time. That event was hosted 4 years ago in Ames, Iowa. You may be wondering why the Special Olympics doesn't happen on a national level more frequently. Well, one look at the numbers, and you begin to understand what a huge undertaking this is for the host state. The Games will bring in 2,800 athletes from 48 states and the District of Columbia, as well as over 1,000 coaches. They will compete in 13 different sports, including track and field events. 15,000 friends and families of athletes will come to cheer them on. All of this requires more than 8,500 volunteers, and watching it all will be 30,000 spectators. All of this requires housing, medical, security, food, transportation. Well, you get the idea.
In regards to just the medical plan itself, Bryan LGH Medical Center has committed around 600 to 700 nurses, actually. I would have to say this is unlike anything I've been involved in before.
After nearly 3 years of planning, it was finally time to bring these incredible athletes to Lincoln. The largest peacetime airlift transported almost 2,000 athletes to the capital city, with planes landing at Duncan Aviation every 60 to 90 seconds for a 9-hour period. And the honorary chairman of this year's games was Harrison Ford.
It's an honor to be a part of this effort.
For the athletes, the transportation to and from the games did not disappoint.
We flew on the Arizona Diamondbacks airplane.
Oh my gosh! How cool was that?
Very cool.
Flying for the very first time.
What was that like?
It's awesome.
Yeah?
It's very awesome. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I don't want to miss this for the world.
As others made their way onto private jets, Bobby Watson was receiving a send-off of his own.
So you've been lifting weights?
Yeah.
Staying in shape?
Yeah.
Eating a healthy diet?
No.
Now that the athletes were all in town, it was time for a big Husker welcome.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the athletes of the 2010 Special Olympics USA National Games.
They made it so special. The music, the smoke, the cheering crowd. It was amazing walking through.
For many, the key speaker at the opening ceremonies had a deep impact. His late mother, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, started the Special Olympics more than 42 years ago.
We leave this ceremony determined to change not just Lincoln, not just to teach Nebraska, but to change this country until the day when there is every opportunity for every person, no matter their different abilities, to compete, to play on the playing field and in life.
The games were finally here, and Bobby Watson was ready. His first event, the 400-meter speed walk. Cheering Bobby on were his 5 sisters, along with other family and friends, otherwise known as Team Bobby. But Bobby didn't just come to the USA National Games. For him, this has been years in the making.
He started way back in 1984, I think. In one event, he was walking around the field, and Eddie, my brother-in-law, was kind of coaching him on the inside, and he was coming around the corner, and we all couldn't figure out why he was just dogging it. We couldn't figure out what was wrong, and Eddie was in the middle. Come on, Bob, come on, come on. When he finished, he unzipped his coat, and he had like a 6-pack of pop stuck in all these pockets.
Despite the extra weight, Bobby finished, but his sisters are quick to point out that it isn't always about the race.
After your track meets, don't you guys go to a dance?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a party.
Yeah.
We have to go home. They stay and party.
Are there some cute girls there?
Yeah.
Oh. Do you know any of their names?
Nope.
Doesn't matter, does it?
Nope.
I think there's one named Sue, isn't there?
Shut up.
Isn't there? On your bus?
Sue, help me.
The friendships that Bobby and other athletes have made through Special Olympics are the true testament to the success of the program.
It seems like you guys are pretty good friends.
Yeah, we've been knowing each other for a while.
And guess who's the talker on the team? Me. I am the biggest talker.
As Bobby and all of the other competitors can attest, it's the sense of accomplishment and belonging that means the world to these special athletes.
You did it.
I thought about bringing home, getting that big, huge DOLD on my chest, bring it home. Then when I got to my dad's, I was hoisted up in the air, just going. I did it. I did it. In the biggest stage of my life, I did it.
Watch our stories online at netnebraska.org/Nebraska Stories, and go to Facebook to like us and leave a comment. Join the Nebraska Stories conversation. Nebraska Stories is funded by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation, the Nebraska Office of Highway Safety, Humanities Nebraska, the Nebraska Tourism Commission, and First Nebraska Bank. Sustained funding for arts coverage is provided by the H. Lee and Carol Gendler Charitable Fund, the Nebraska Arts Council, and Nebraska Cultural Endowment.